My cousin called me just a babysitter and sold my stuff, so I got her fired. Just a babysitter? Just a babysitter? The words hit me like a slap across the face as I stood in my aunt's kitchen, surrounded by the entire extended family at Sunday dinner. My cousin Melissa didn't even look up from her wine glass as she waved her manicured hand dismissively. Oh please, Emma. You watch TV and make sure they don't burn the house down. It's not like you're raising them or anything important. The silence that followed was deafening. My grandmother's fork clinked against her plate. Uncle Tom cleared his throat awkwardly. And I just stood there, feeling my cheeks burn with humiliation, clutching the handmade Mother's Day card that 6-year-old Sophie and 4-year-old Marcus had spent 3 hours making for me yesterday. Happy Mother's Day, Emma. Sophie had announced proudly when she gave it to me, her gap-toothed grin stretching from ear to ear. You take better care of us than Mommy does. I'd laughed it off then, but now those innocent words felt like ammunition I couldn't use. For the past 14 months, I'd been watching Melissa's kids 3 to 4 days a week while she worked her high-powered marketing job downtown. What started as occasional babysitting had evolved into something much more significant. I picked them up from school, helped with homework, made dinner, gave baths, read bedtime stories, and tucked them in. When Marcus had nightmares, he called for me. When Sophie learned to ride her bike, I was the one running behind her, cheering. And I did it all for free. Sure, I'm only 19 and still in college, but I took this responsibility seriously. These kids meant everything to me. I'd rearranged my entire class schedule around their needs, turning down social events and study groups to make sure they were never left alone. Emma's been incredibly helpful, my mom said quietly, trying to smooth things over. The children adore her. Of course they do, Melissa laughed, that sharp, corporate laugh she'd perfected. She buys them whatever they want and lets them stay up late. It's easy to be the fun babysitter. Babysitter. There was that word again, dripping with condescension. I should probably head back to campus, I mumbled, grabbing my purse. I have studying to do. Oh, about that, Melissa said, suddenly perking up. I cleaned out the guest room yesterday and threw away some junk you left there. Books and an old laptop. You really shouldn't leave your stuff lying around for months, Em. My blood ran cold. What books? What laptop? Just some college textbooks and that beat-up MacBook. I assumed they were trash since you abandoned them there. Melissa, those were my organic chemistry and calculus textbooks for this semester. And that laptop has all my research for my senior thesis on it. My voice was shaking now. I left them there because you said I could use the guest room as a study space when the kids napped. Well, they were cluttering up the room. I got $300 for the lot at that used electronics place downtown. Consider it payment for all the babysitting. She smirked and took another sip of wine. $300. My textbooks alone cost over $400, and the laptop was worth at least $800, not to mention the irreplaceable research files. You sold my stuff? Your abandoned junk, she corrected. Really, Emma, you're being dramatic. That night, lying in my dorm room, staring at the ceiling, something crystallized in my mind. 14 months of free childcare. Countless nights sleeping on that guest room floor when she didn't come home. And this is how she saw me. Just a babysitter. Well, maybe it was time she learned exactly how valuable this just a babysitter really was. The next morning, I sat in my constitutional law class trying to focus on Professor Martinez's lecture about due process, but my mind kept drifting to those damn textbooks. 8 weeks left in the semester, and I'd have to rebuy everything or fail my pre-med requirements. The laptop loss was even worse, 3 months of research on antibiotic-resistant bacteria, all gone because Melissa couldn't tell the difference between junk and someone's academic future. My phone buzzed with a text from her, can you pick up the kids at 3? Important client meeting ran late. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. This was exactly what I meant. No please, no thank you, just an assumption that I'd drop everything for her convenience. Again. But then I thought about Sophie and Marcus sitting on those hard plastic chairs in the after-school program, watching other kids get picked up while they waited. It wasn't their fault their mother was a narcissistic witch. Sure, I typed back, hating myself for it. At Westfield Elementary, I found both kids looking dejected in the nearly empty multipurpose room. Marcus ran to me immediately, wrapping his small arms around my legs. Emma. Mrs. Patterson said if nobody came by 6 o'clock, they'd have to call social services. But I told her you always come. My heart clenched. Social services? I glanced at the tired-looking woman supervising the last few kids. She gave me a meaningful look. This is the 4th time this month, she said quietly as Sophie gathered her backpack. And it's only May 15th. 4th time. I'd been out of town for a debate tournament 2 weeks ago, which meant Melissa had left them here 3 other times when I wasn't available to clean up her mess. I understand, I said carefully. I'll make sure to communicate better with their mother about pickup times. Mrs. Patterson nodded, but her expression remained concerned. The children are wonderful, but we close at 6 p.m. sharp. It's district policy. During the drive to Melissa's house, Sophie chattered about her upcoming school play while Marcus dozed in his car seat. When we pulled into the driveway of her pristine suburban home, the one she could afford thanks to never paying for childcare, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Melissa's white BMW was parked in the garage. She was home. Had been home, probably for hours, while her kids sat in after-school care thinking they'd been forgotten. Is Mommy here? Sophie asked excitedly, spotting the car. Looks like it, sweetheart. We found Melissa in her home office, still in her work clothes, video chatting with someone about quarterly projections. She held up one finger when she saw us, the universal sign for wait. Sorry, David, my babysitter just arrived with the kids. Can we continue this tomorrow? Babysitter. Even when I wasn't being paid, even when I was cleaning up her parental responsibilities, that's all I was. After she ended the call, I couldn't help myself. Your meeting ended early? Around 2:30, actually. But I had some calls to catch up on, and you know how the kids get when I'm trying to work from home. She didn't even look guilty. They're so much better with you anyway. So she'd let her children sit in after-school care, worried about being taken away, while she conducted optional business calls from her comfortable office. And somehow, this was perfectly reasonable in her mind. I need to get back to campus, I said, my voice carefully neutral. Of course. Thanks again, Em. You're a lifesaver. Walking back to my car, Mrs. Patterson's words echoed in my head, the fourth time this month. I wondered what else Melissa had been lying about. That evening, I couldn't concentrate on rewriting my thesis notes. Every time I tried to focus on bacterial resistance patterns, I kept thinking about Marcus's scared little face when he mentioned social services. Finally, I gave up and decided to call my study group partner, Jessica, to borrow her organic chemistry textbook. Emma, thank God, Jessica said when she picked up. I've been trying to reach you all day. Did you know there's a mandatory study session tomorrow for the MCAT prep course? Professor Williams moved it up because of the lab scheduling conflict. My stomach dropped. The MCAT prep course that cost me $2,400 and required specific software that was installed on my laptop. The laptop currently sitting in some stranger's hands thanks to Melissa's cleaning spree. I'll figure something out, I said weakly. Girl, you sound terrible. What's going on? I found myself spilling everything, the humiliation at Sunday dinner, the stolen belongings, the pattern of Melissa's neglect. I was finally starting to see clearly. Jessica listened without judgment, occasionally making sympathetic noises. Wait, she interrupted when I got to the part about Mrs. Patterson's warning. Your cousin left those babies at school until almost 6 p.m. while she was already home. That's not just selfish, Em. That's actually reportable. What do you mean? My mom's a social worker. Deliberate abandonment, even at a school, counts as neglect. Especially if there's a pattern. I felt something cold settle in my chest. A pattern. How many times has she done stuff like this? I started counting in my head, going back over the past 14 months. The overnight business trips that turned out to be weekend spa getaways with friends. The emergency meetings that were actually dinner dates. The times I'd arrived to find Sophie making cereal for herself and Marcus because Melissa had left for work without arranging breakfast. A lot, I admitted quietly. Emma, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but those kids deserve better. And honestly, so do you. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone for a long time. Then I opened my notes app and started typing. May 15th, left children at after-school care until 5:45 p.m. while working from home. Mrs. Patterson, supervisor, mentioned this was the fourth occurrence this month, asterisk asterisk. It felt strange, documenting Melissa's failures like evidence. But wasn't that exactly what they were? My phone buzzed with another text from her. Hey. Forgot to mention, I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow for a conference. Can you stay over tonight and get the kids to school? You're amazing. Red heart. I stared at the message, remembering how just this morning she'd made it clear I was just a babysitter, not worth basic respect or even a heads up before selling my belongings. Now I was amazing again because she needed something. I scrolled up through our text history, looking at months of similar messages. Emergency at work, can you grab the kids? Running late, start dinner without me. Slight change of plans, I'll be back Sunday instead of Friday. Never please. Never, I'm sorry for the short notice. Never, how can I make this up to you? And definitely never any actual payment, despite the fact that professional nannies in our area charge $20 to $25 per hour. But what really made my blood boil was the realization that tomorrow's conference wasn't even a real emergency. She'd had time to plan ahead, to arrange proper childcare, to give me more than 12 hours notice. Instead, she'd waited until the last minute, knowing I'd scramble to accommodate her yet again. I looked at my notes app, then started typing a new entry. May 16th, informed at 9:30 p.m. that she's leaving for multi-day conference the following morning. No advance notice, no discussion of payment for extended care, asterisk asterisk. Then I typed back, sure thing. Have a safe flight. But this time, I was going to be paying very close attention to everything. The next morning, I arrived at Melissa's house at 6:30 a.m. with my overnight bag and a new composition notebook I picked up at the campus store. If I was going to document things, I might as well do it properly. You're a saint, Emma, Melissa said, wheeling her designer suitcase toward the door. She was dressed in what I recognized as her important meeting outfit, the navy Armani suit that cost more than my entire semester's textbooks. The kids are still sleeping. I left some cash on the counter for groceries. I glanced over and saw 2 crumpled $20 bills next to a stack of unopened mail. $40 to feed 2 kids for 3 days. The irony wasn't lost on me, she'd gotten more money selling my stuff than she was leaving for her children's meals. When will you be back? I asked. Sunday evening, probably around 8. It's just a quick client presentation thing. She was already checking her phone, clearly eager to leave. Oh, and Sophie has soccer practice Saturday at 10. The field is behind the community center. What about Marcus? What about him? Where does he go during Sophie's practice? Melissa paused, looking genuinely confused by the question. I don't know, the playground? You'll figure it out. And with that, she was gone, leaving me alone in her house with 2 sleeping children and no real emergency contact information beyond her cell phone. I made myself coffee and opened my new notebook, writing down everything I could remember about the morning conversation. As I wrote, I noticed something that made my pen freeze mid-sentence. The stack of mail on the counter included several official-looking envelopes. The top one was from Westfield Elementary, and through the translucent window, I could see the words attendance concern in bold red letters. I stared at it for a long moment. It wasn't addressed to me, but if I was responsible for these kids, shouldn't I know if there were problems at school? Before I could lose my nerve, I carefully opened the envelope. Asterisk Dear MS. Rodriguez asterisk. Asterisk This letter serves as formal notification that Sophie Rodriguez has exceeded the acceptable number of tardiness incidents for the current academic year. As of May 10th, Sophie has been marked tardy 23 times, with 12 incidents occurring after 9:30 a.m., considered excessive tardiness. Asterisk. Asterisk Additionally, we have noted irregular pickup patterns that may indicate inadequate supervision arrangements. Please contact the main office within 5 business days to discuss an intervention plan. Asterisk. Failure to address these attendance issues may result in a referral to the Department of Children and Family Services. Sincerely. Principal Janet Morrison. 23 tardies. I felt sick. During the months I'd been handling school pickups and drop-offs, Sophie had perfect attendance. But apparently, on the days when Melissa was supposed to handle it herself. I photographed the letter with my phone, then carefully put it back in the envelope. Underneath was another letter, this one from Marcus's preschool, dated just 5 days ago. Ms. Rodriguez. Asterisk, we need to discuss Marcus's recent behavioral changes. His teacher reports increased anxiety, difficulty concentrating, and repeated statements about being alone. Yesterday, he told his teacher that Emma takes care of us when mommy forgets. Asterisk. Asterisk, while we understand that family situations can be complex, we are required to report concerns about potential neglect. Please schedule a conference immediately. Asterisk. Best regards. Director Susan Chin. My hands were shaking as I photographed this letter too. Marcus was having anxiety at school because of his mother's neglect, and she hadn't even bothered to open the letter from his teacher. Emma? A small voice came from the stairs. Sophie appeared in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Is mommy gone already? Yes, sweetheart. She had to catch an early flight. But I'm here all weekend. Sophie's face lit up in a way that broke my heart. She was genuinely happier to spend time with me than with her own mother. Can we make pancakes? Real ones, not the frozen kind? Of course we can. As I mixed batter and listened to Sophie chatter about her upcoming spelling test, I thought about that letter from her principal. 23 tardies. Irregular pickup patterns. Potential DCFS referral. Melissa wasn't just disrespecting me, she was actively damaging her children's education and emotional well-being. And somehow, she managed to keep her corporate job because everyone assumed she was a responsible working mother. But what if they knew the truth? While the kids were eating their pancakes, my phone rang. I expected it to be Melissa checking in, but the caller ID showed an unfamiliar local number. Hello, this is Emma. Hi, I'm looking for Melissa Rodriguez? This is Janet Morrison, principal at Westfield Elementary. My stomach dropped. She's traveling for work. I'm watching Sophie and Marcus. Is everything okay? Are you a family member? I'm their cousin. I do most of the childcare. The words felt bitter now. I see. Well, we had a mandatory parent conference scheduled for this morning regarding Sophie's attendance issues. Ms. Rodriguez missed the appointment, and this is her second missed conference this semester. I glanced at Sophie, who was carefully cutting her pancakes into perfect squares, completely unaware that her school was building a case against her mother. I wasn't aware of any conference, I said honestly. According to our records, we've sent 3 letters home and left 4 voicemails. When parents become unresponsive to attendance interventions, we're required to file a report with Child Protective Services. The words hit me like ice water. A report? I'm sorry, but it's district policy. We'll be submitting the documentation on Monday unless Ms. Rodriguez contacts us immediately to reschedule. After Principal Morrison hung up, I sat staring at my phone. Monday. Melissa wouldn't be back until Sunday night, and even then, she'd probably be too tired to deal with school calls. I added this to my growing notebook, then decided to do something I'd never done before. I started going through Melissa's actual work schedule. She kept a large wall calendar in her home office, the kind with color-coded squares for different activities. I told myself I needed to check for any other appointments I should know about while watching the kids, but really, I was looking for evidence. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The past 3 months were a masterpiece of deception. Days marked client meeting, late pickup, corresponded with dates I'd scrambled to get the kids from school. Business dinner, can't do bedtime, lined up with frantic texts asking me to babysit. But when I cross-referenced these with her social media posts, a different picture emerged. Client meeting on March 15th was actually a spa day with her college friends. She posted Instagram stories from the resort all afternoon. Business dinner on April 3rd was her boyfriend Derek's birthday party. I'd seen the photos on Facebook. But the most damning evidence was right there in blue ink. Chicago conference, May 16th to 19th. May 19th was Monday. She wasn't coming back Sunday night, she'd lied about that too. Which meant she expected me to handle the school crisis, get the kids to classes, and somehow deal with Principal Morrison's ultimatum about the CPS report. Emma? Marcus appeared in the doorway of the office, holding his stuffed elephant. Can we go to the park? Of course, buddy. Let me just finish writing something down. I photographed the calendar, focusing on the entries that proved her pattern of lies. Then I wrote detailed notes about each discrepancy, including the social media evidence. As we walked to the neighborhood park, Sophie skipping ahead while Marcus held my hand, I thought about Jessica's words, those kids deserve better. And honestly, so do you. At the playground, I watched Marcus go down the slide over and over, his anxiety from school replaced by genuine joy. Sophie made friends with another girl and they created an elaborate game involving the monkey bars and some kind of fairy kingdom. These were good kids. Sweet, smart, resilient kids who deserved a mother who showed up. Who didn't lie to their school. Who didn't leave them wondering if they'd been forgotten. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa, conference is going great. Probably closing the Morrison deal. Party popper. Morrison. The same last name as Sophie's principal, who was filing a CPS report on Monday. I stared at the message, then at the kids playing happily in the sunshine, then back at my notebook full of evidence. Maybe it was time someone told Melissa's employer exactly what kind of deals she was really making. That evening, after I'd put the kids to bed with their usual routine of stories and cuddles, I sat in Melissa's living room with my laptop borrowed from my roommate and started doing something that felt both necessary and terrifying, research. First, I looked up Melissa's company, Hartwell and Associates Marketing. Their website was sleek and professional, full of corporate buzzwords about integrity, family values, and work-life balance. The leadership page showed a photo of Melissa in that same navy Armani suit, listed as Senior Account Executive, Corporate Relations. But what really caught my attention was their employee handbook, which I found linked in the careers section. I downloaded the PDF and searched for keywords, ethics, conduct, fraud. Section 4.3 made my heart race. Asterisk employees are expected to maintain the highest standards of honesty in all professional communications. Misrepresentation of work activities, falsification of time records, or use of company resources for personal matters may result in immediate termination. Asterisk. Section 7.1 was even better. Asterisk Hartwell and Associates is committed to supporting working parents. However, employees who demonstrate patterns of unreliable childcare arrangements that impact work performance or require frequent emergency accommodations may be subject to performance review. Asterisk. I thought about all those emergency texts, all the time she'd claimed work conflicts that were actually personal choices. If her employer knew she was lying about client meetings to justify dumping her kids on unpaid family labor. My phone rang, interrupting my research. Unknown number again. Hello? Emma, this is Susan Chen from Little Sprouts Preschool. I'm sorry to call so late, but we have an urgent situation. My blood went cold. Is Marcus okay? Marcus is fine, but we received some concerning information today. Another parent mentioned seeing social media posts of Ms. Rodriguez at entertainment venues during times when she's told us she was in work meetings. We're required to investigate any reports of potential guardian misrepresentation. I closed my eyes. Of course other parents followed Melissa on Facebook. Of course someone had noticed the discrepancies between her claimed work schedule and her actual activities. I see, I managed. We've also noticed that you're listed as an emergency contact, but you're not on our approved pickup list as a legal guardian. If Ms. Rodriguez has been regularly unavailable during claimed work hours, we need to know who has actual authority over Marcus's care. The legal implications hit me like a truck. I've been picking up and caring for these children for over a year without any official documentation. If something happened to them in my care, if they got hurt or sick, I had no legal right to make medical decisions. Melissa had been using me as free childcare while leaving me completely unprotected. Ms. Rodriguez is currently traveling for work, I said carefully. We'll need to speak with her first thing Monday morning. If she's unavailable, we'll have to contact Child Protective Services ourselves. After Ms. Chen hung up, I sat in the dark living room, listening to the house creak around me. Both schools were filing CPS reports on Monday. Melissa was off partying in Chicago, lying about work conferences while her children's lives imploded. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. I opened my laptop and navigated to Hartwell and Associates' website. At the bottom of the page was a link I'd noticed earlier, Ethics Hotline, Confidential Reporting. The form was simple. Name optional, relationship to company, nature of concern, supporting details. I started typing. Asterisk I am writing to report concerns about employee Melissa Rodriguez, Senior Account Executive, regarding falsification of work activities and misuse of company policies. I have documented evidence of Ms. Rodriguez claiming false work emergencies to obtain schedule accommodations while actually engaging in personal activities. Asterisk. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Once I submitted this, there would be no going back. Melissa would know it was me. The family would take sides. Everything would change. But then I heard Marcus whimper from upstairs, another nightmare, probably. I crept up to check on him, finding him curled around his stuffed elephant, his little face scrunched with worry even in sleep. Tomorrow was Saturday. Sophie had soccer practice, but I still didn't know what to do with Marcus during it. Melissa hadn't left emergency contact information for their pediatrician. She'd lied about when she was coming home, leaving me to handle 2 potential CPS investigations with no authority and no backup plan. I tucked Marcus's blanket around him more securely and went back downstairs to finish what I'd started. Because Jessica was right. These kids deserved better. And it was time their mother faced some real consequences. I spent Saturday morning at Sophie's soccer practice watching Marcus climb the same piece of playground equipment over and over, my notebook balanced on my knee as I documented everything. The other parents chatted about weekend plans and school fundraisers, completely unaware that I was essentially a fraud, not a parent, not a legal guardian, just someone who'd been handed 2 kids and told to figure it out. Emma. Sophie ran over after practice, grass-stained and beaming. Did you see my goal? Coach Martinez said I might make a travel team. I saw it, sweetheart. You were amazing. I meant it, but my heart ached thinking about how Melissa had missed every single game this season. Sophie always scanned the sidelines hopefully during warm-ups, then tried to hide her disappointment when her mom didn't show. Can we get ice cream? Mommy always says maybe later, but you actually do fun stuff. Out of the mouths of babes. I added that comment to my notes while Marcus got chocolate chip cookie dough on his shirt. That afternoon, while the kids napped, I made a decision that felt simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. I called Hartwell and Associates main line. Good afternoon, Hartwell and Associates, this is Jennifer. Hi, I'm trying to reach someone regarding the Morrison Industries account. I believe Melissa Rodriguez is the point person? A pause. I'm sorry, could you clarify which Morrison Industries? I don't show any active accounts under that name in Ms. Rodriguez's portfolio. My stomach flipped. The Chicago conference this week? She mentioned closing a big deal with Morrison? Ms. Rodriguez isn't scheduled for any travel this week. She requested personal time off through Monday for a family emergency. Would you like me to transfer you to her backup contact? Personal time off. Family emergency. I hung up without another word, my hands shaking. She'd lied to me about the work conference, but she'd also lied to her employer about having a family emergency. She was in Chicago on personal time while telling her job she was dealing with a crisis at home. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes. Melissa had built her entire life on a foundation of lies, playing every angle to maximize her freedom while minimizing her responsibilities. She told me it was work so I'd feel guilty about saying no. She told work it was family so they'd approve time off. Meanwhile, she was probably at some resort with Derek, posting Instagram stories from the spa while her kids faced potential removal by CPS. I opened the ethics complaint form again and added this new information. Asterisk employee claimed work travel to obtain free childcare from family, while simultaneously claiming family emergency to obtain personal time off from company. Investigation will show Ms. Rodriguez is currently using personal vacation days for leisure travel while abandoning her children with unpaid relatives. Asterisk. But before I could submit it, my phone rang. Melissa, finally checking in after more than 24 hours of radio silence. Emma. How are my babies? They're fine, but we need to talk. The school called yesterday. Oh God, what now? Did Sophie get hurt at practice? No, Melissa. Principal Morrison called about the mandatory parent conference you missed. They're filing a CPS report on Monday. Silence. Then, that's ridiculous. Sophie's attendance is fine. 23 tardies, Melissa. And Marcus's preschool is also filing a report. They know about your fake work meetings. My what? Emma, you're being paranoid. Look, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Can you handle it until I get back Tuesday? Tuesday? You said Sunday night. Plans changed. The conference got extended. Very important client. I looked at my laptop screen, still showing her company's confirmation that she was on personal time off for a family emergency. What's the name of this client, Melissa? What? Why does that matter? Because your own company told me there's no Morrison Industries in your portfolio. Because they think you're home dealing with a family crisis, not at some conference. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, colder, more calculated. Emma, you're overstepping. My work arrangements are none of your business. They became my business when you left me to handle CPS investigations while you're off partying in Chicago. I am not partying. This is work-related networking that. Save it, Melissa. I've documented everything. Another pause. Then, documented what, exactly? I looked at my notebook, filled with dates and times and evidence of her lies. I thought about Sophie's face when she scored that goal today, looking hopefully at the sidelines for a mother who wasn't there. I thought about Marcus's nightmares and his teacher's concerns about abandonment. Everything, I said quietly. All of it. Emma, you need to be very careful here. If you do something stupid, it won't just hurt me. Think about the kids. The threat was clear, and it made my decision easier. I am thinking about them, Melissa. For the first time in this whole mess, someone actually is. I hung up and clicked submit on the ethics complaint. Time to see how much that high-powered job really meant to her. Sunday morning arrived with a phone call that changed everything. Emma, this is Detective Sarah Walsh with the Child Protection Unit. I understand you're currently caring for Sophie and Marcus Rodriguez? My blood turned to ice. It wasn't even 7 a.m., and the kids were still sleeping. Yes, I'm their cousin. Their mother is traveling. We've received multiple reports of concern from educational facilities. I need to ask you some questions about the children's living situation. I sank onto the couch, my notebook clutched in my free hand. Of course. How long have you been the primary caregiver? I'm not the primary caregiver. I just help out when Melissa works. According to Westfield Elementary, you're listed as the primary emergency contact and have been handling all school communications for approximately 8 months. Little Sprouts Preschool reports similar patterns. This suggests a level of responsibility beyond occasional babysitting. 8 months. Had it really been that long since Melissa had dealt with anything school-related herself? The children's mother is currently unreachable, Detective Walsh continued. Her employer confirmed she's not on business travel as initially claimed. We need to understand the actual care arrangement here. I felt the walls closing in. She's supposed to be back Tuesday. I see. And you're comfortable continuing care until then? The question felt loaded. If I said no, what happened to Sophie and Marcus? If I said yes, was I somehow complicit in Melissa's abandonment? The children are safe with me, I said finally. I'm sure they are. Your background check came back clean, and both schools spoke very highly of your involvement. However, we do need to address the legal guardianship situation. Can you be available for a home visit this afternoon? After Detective Walsh hung up, I sat in the quiet house, watching dust motes dance in the morning sunlight. A CPS detective was coming here. Today. To evaluate whether I was suitable to care for children I had no legal right to be watching. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer from Hartwell and Associates HR. We received your ethics complaint and need to schedule an interview regarding Melissa Rodriguez. Are you available Monday morning? Everything was happening at once. I'd set this chain reaction in motion, and now I couldn't control where it landed. Emma? Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs in her princess pajamas. Why are you up so early? Just couldn't sleep, sweetheart. Want to help me make pancakes again? As we cooked breakfast, Sophie chattered about a book report she needed to finish, completely oblivious to the fact that a detective was coming to evaluate her living situation. Marcus joined us, still clutching his stuffed elephant, and climbed into my lap while I helped Sophie brainstorm ideas about her favorite character. This was the reality Melissa was missing. These quiet morning moments, the homework help, the way Marcus's face lit up when I remembered he liked his pancakes cut into triangles. She was off in Chicago doing God knows what while her children lived in limbo, their futures dependent on the goodwill of a 19-year-old college student with no legal authority. My phone rang again. This time it was my mom. Emma, your aunt just called me in tears. Melissa's employer contacted the family looking for her because she's not responding to urgent calls about some client crisis. They think there might have been an accident. I closed my eyes. The lies were unraveling faster than I'd anticipated. Mom, Melissa's fine. She's in Chicago on personal time, not business travel. How do you know that? Because I'd reported her to HR myself, but I couldn't exactly say that. I just do. Can you call Aunt Linda back and tell her to have Melissa contact her job immediately? There's going to be serious consequences if she doesn't. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was still cleaning up Melissa's messes, even while trying to expose them. Detective Walsh arrived at 2 p.m. sharp, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a tablet full of questions. I'd spent the morning coaching myself to stay calm, but my hand still shook as I opened the door. Ms. Emma Chen? I'm Detective Walsh. Thank you for making time for this. The kids were in the backyard, and I could hear Sophie's laughter through the open kitchen window as she pushed Marcus on the tire swing. Normal kid sounds in what was rapidly becoming a very abnormal situation. Before we begin, Detective Walsh said, settling into Melissa's pristine living room, I want you to know this isn't an adversarial process. We're simply trying to understand the children's care situation. She asked about daily routines, medical information, emergency procedures. With each question, it became clearer how completely I'd taken over Melissa's parental responsibilities without either of us acknowledging it. You mentioned the children have been staying overnight frequently. How often would you estimate? I flipped through my notebook, counting. In the past 2 months? Probably 15 nights. Detective Walsh's eyebrows rose slightly. That's substantial. And Ms. Rodriguez didn't provide any legal documentation for medical decision-making during these extended stays? No. I never really thought about it until this week. What happens if one of them gets seriously injured while in your care? The question I'd been avoiding finally hit me full force. I had no legal right to authorize medical treatment. If Marcus fell off that swing right now and needed emergency surgery, I'd be powerless to help him. I don't know, I admitted. Detective Walsh made notes on her tablet. The schools describe you as highly engaged and reliable. Sophie's teacher specifically mentioned that her academic performance improved significantly when you began handling pickup and homework assistance. That suggests you're providing stability these children need. It should have felt like praise, but instead it highlighted how badly Melissa had been failing them. However, Detective Walsh continued, the informal nature of this arrangement is problematic. You're essentially functioning as a legal guardian without any of the protections or authority that entails. My phone buzzed with another text from Melissa. Stop answering questions about my personal life. You're making this worse. Detective Walsh glanced at my phone. Ms. Rodriguez? She's concerned about the investigation. I imagine she is. We've been trying to reach her since Friday. Her employer finally provided emergency contact information, but she's not responding to official communications. Through the window, I watched Marcus carefully climb the rope ladder to the treehouse Melissa's ex-husband had built 2 years ago. He'd been afraid of heights when I first started watching them, but now he scaled it fearlessly. 14 months of patient encouragement had given him that confidence. Detective Walsh, can I ask you something? If these reports had come in 6 months ago, before I was handling everything, what would have happened? She studied me carefully. Based on the documentation from both schools? The children likely would have been placed in temporary custody while we investigated. The weight of that statement settled over me. I hadn't just been providing free childcare, I'd been preventing my cousin's children from entering the foster system. There's something else you should know, Detective Walsh said. We ran a background check on Ms. Rodriguez as part of this investigation. She has 2 prior incidents on record, both involving children left unattended in vehicles while she conducted business inside establishments. My pen froze over my notebook. What? July 2019 and March 2021. Both times, concerned citizens called police about young children alone in cars. Ms. Rodriguez claimed brief stops that became extended delays. No charges were filed, but the incidents were documented. Before I started watching them regularly. Before I became their safety net. The pattern we're seeing isn't new, Ms. Chen. It's escalating. Outside, Sophie called for me to watch her cartwheel. I waved and smiled, but inside I felt sick. How many other close calls had there been? How many times had Melissa's poor judgment nearly resulted in tragedy? My phone rang, Jennifer from Hartwell and Associates. Ms. Chen? I'm sorry to call on Sunday, but we have an urgent situation. Ms. Rodriguez was supposed to be handling a client crisis, but she's completely unreachable. Can you confirm her current location? I looked at Detective Walsh, who nodded slightly. She's in Chicago on personal time. There is no client crisis, she lied about the business travel. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. I see. Thank you for that clarification. We'll be conducting a full investigation tomorrow morning. As I hung up, Detective Walsh closed her tablet. Ms. Chen, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on everything I've observed and documented today, these children are thriving in your care. But this arrangement can't continue indefinitely without legal framework. She handed me a business card. I'm recommending emergency temporary guardianship papers. If Ms. Rodriguez doesn't return by Tuesday with a comprehensive care plan, we'll need to formalize your role or find alternative placement. After she left, I sat in the gathering dusk, watching Sophie and Marcus catch fireflies in mason jars. Tomorrow, Melissa's career would implode. Tuesday, I might become their legal guardian. The revenge I planned was working perfectly. So why did I feel like I was drowning? Monday morning brought the reckoning I'd orchestrated, but not in the way I'd expected. I was making breakfast for the kids when my phone started buzzing incessantly. First, a text from Aunt Linda. Emma, Melissa's job called again. They're threatening termination if she doesn't report by 9 a.m. Then my mom, what's happening? The whole family is asking questions. But the call that made my stomach drop came at 7:43 a.m. Emma? It was Melissa, and she sounded completely different, panicked, desperate. What the fuck did you do? I stepped into the hallway, lowering my voice so the kids wouldn't hear. What are you talking about? My job. They're saying I falsified travel reports and abandoned a client crisis. My boss wants me on a conference call in an hour to explain why I'm not in Chicago handling Morrison Industries when there is no Morrison Industries. I've been rehearsing this moment for days, but hearing the raw fear in her voice made it feel different. Maybe you should come home and deal with your actual responsibilities instead of lying to everyone. Emma, you don't understand. If I lose this job, I lose everything. The house, the kids' school districts, their health insurance, everything. You should have thought about that before you sold my laptop and called me just a babysitter. This isn't about your stupid laptop. Jesus Christ, I'll buy you 10 laptops. This is about my entire life falling apart. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Sophie helping Marcus pour orange juice, both of them still in their pajamas, completely unaware that their world was crumbling around them. Marcus was humming the song I taught him last week, You Are My Sunshine. Your life fell apart a long time ago, Melissa. I just documented it. The silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. You reported me. To my company. Among other things, yes. Emma, do you have any idea what you've done? Hartwell doesn't just fire people for policy violations. They blacklist them. I'll never work in marketing again. Not in this city, maybe not anywhere. I thought about Detective Walsh's words yesterday. The pattern we're seeing isn't new. It's escalating. I thought about those police reports from 2019 and 2021, children left alone in hot cars while Melissa prioritized her convenience over their safety. Good, I said, and meant it. You vindictive little bitch. The mask was completely off now. You destroyed my family over college textbooks and wounded pride. I didn't destroy anything, Melissa. I just stopped covering for you. The kids will hate you for this. When they're living in some shitty apartment because mommy lost her house, when they can't afford soccer camp and music lessons, they'll know it's because Aunt Emma decided to play God. Her words hit harder than I expected. Sophie had been so excited about possibly making the travel soccer team. Marcus loved his music classes at preschool. Would they really blame me when they were old enough to understand what had happened? But then Marcus appeared in the hallway, his elephant tucked under his arm. Emma? Sophie spilled juice and she's crying because she thinks she'll be mad like mommy gets. I knelt down to his eye level. I could never be mad at Sophie for accidents, buddy. Can you tell her it's okay and I'll be right there? He nodded seriously and trotted back to the kitchen. When I put the phone back to my ear, Melissa had gone quiet. Did you hear that? I asked softly. Your 4-year-old son knows the difference between how you react to mistakes and how someone who actually cares about them reacts. That should tell you everything about why we're here. I love my children. No, Melissa. You love the idea of being seen as a successful mother. But love isn't just a feeling, it's showing up. It's putting them first. It's not leaving them wondering if they've been forgotten. My phone beeped with another call. Jennifer from Hartwell and Associates. I have to go. Your HR department is calling. Emma, wait. Please. Can we work something out? I'll pay you for the childcare, I'll replace your staff, I'll do better with schedules. Just, please don't let them take my kids. The desperation in her voice was real, but it was 14 months too late. They're not taking your kids, Melissa. You gave them away a long time ago. You just never bothered to notice. I hung up and answered the other line, ready to finish what I'd started. The conference call with Hartwell and Associates was scheduled for 10 a.m., but Jennifer called me at 9:15 with an update that made my chest tight. Ms. Chen, I wanted you to know that Ms. Rodriguez contacted us 20 minutes ago. She's hired a lawyer and is claiming that her family members have been harassing her employer with false information due to a personal vendetta. My mouth went dry. What does that mean exactly? It means she's trying to frame this as a family dispute rather than legitimate misconduct. Her attorney is demanding we disregard any external complaints and threatening legal action if we terminate her based on hearsay from disgruntled relatives. I sank into Melissa's kitchen chair, watching Sophie practice spelling words at the counter while Marcus built towers with cereal boxes. But I have documentation. Photos, dates, her own text messages. Which is why we still need your statement. Can you be here at 11 a.m.? And Ms. Chen? Bring everything you have. If she's lawyering up this fast, she's planning to fight dirty. After I hung up, my hands were shaking. Somehow, I'd expected Melissa to just accept the consequences and try to rebuild. I hadn't anticipated her going on the offensive, trying to paint me as some jealous family member making up stories. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is attorney Michael Brennan representing Melissa Rodriguez. Cease all contact with my client's employer immediately or face legal action for harassment and defamation. A lawyer. She'd actually hired a lawyer. Emma? Sophie looked up from her spelling practice. You look scared. Are you okay? I forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just some grown-up stuff I need to handle. But I wasn't fine. The weight of what I'd set in motion was crushing. Melissa was fighting back with professional legal help, and I was just a 19-year-old college student with a notebook full of evidence that suddenly felt flimsy. My phone rang again, Detective Walsh. Ms. Chen, we have a problem. Ms. Rodriguez contacted our department claiming you've been making false reports about her parenting in retaliation for a family financial dispute. She's demanding the children be removed from your care immediately. What? That's insane. I don't think it is, which is why I'm calling to warn you. Her attorney is also claiming you've been alienating the children from their mother and maybe psychologically manipulating them. They're requesting an emergency hearing for Wednesday. Wednesday. 2 days away. Detective Walsh, everything I reported is true. I have proof. I believe you, but Ms. Rodriguez is playing this very strategically. She's framing herself as a working mother being targeted by an unstable family member, and she has legal representation while you don't. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. Sophie was still practicing her spelling, writing family in careful letters across her homework page. Marcus had moved on to arranging his cereal box towers by height, humming contentedly. What do I do? Get a lawyer. Today. And whatever documentation you have, make multiple copies immediately. This is about to become a legal battle, not just a CPS investigation. After Detective Walsh hung up, I stared at my phone, feeling completely out of my depth. Lawyers cost money I didn't have. Melissa had her corporate salary and probably savings to fund this fight. I had student loans and a part-time job at the campus bookstore. Emma? Marcus had abandoned his towers and was tugging at my sleeve. Can we go to the park? You promised yesterday. I looked down at his trusting face, then at Sophie diligently working on her homework because I taught her that education mattered. These kids needed stability, routine, someone who showed up consistently. Melissa was trying to use the legal system to regain control, but she was still in Chicago. Still abandoning them while fighting for the right to keep doing it. My phone buzzed with another text from her lawyer. My client will be returning home Tuesday evening to resume full custody. Ensure the children are ready for immediate transition. Tuesday evening. After her extended conference that was really a personal vacation. After missing the CPS meetings and school conferences. After letting me handle the crisis she created. She thought she could lawyer her way out of consequences and waltz back into their lives like nothing had happened. But I still had 24 hours, and I wasn't done fighting yet. The lawyer Melissa hired was expensive, but apparently not expensive enough to be competent. I discovered this Tuesday morning when Jennifer from Hartwell and Associates called with an update that made me laugh despite everything. Ms. Chen, you're not going to believe this. Ms. Rodriguez's attorney submitted a formal complaint claiming we violated employment law by investigating her based on family member reports. But he cited California statutes. Okay? We're in Virginia. The legal precedents he's claiming don't even apply here. Our legal department is having a field day with this. I felt a spark of hope for the first time in 24 hours. What does that mean for the investigation? It means her lawyer either has no idea what he's doing, or she hired the cheapest representation she could find. Either way, the HR review is proceeding as scheduled. After I hung up, I realized something that should have been obvious: Melissa was broke. Not actually broke, but not nearly as financially stable as she pretended to be. The designer suits, the pristine house, the BMW, it was all leveraged to the hilt. She couldn't afford a good lawyer because she was already drowning in debt from maintaining her image. This revelation hit me as I was helping Marcus tie his shoes for preschool. His little Velcro sneakers were worn thin at the toes, and I suddenly noticed that Sophie's soccer cleats were a size too small. Melissa spent money on things other people could see: her clothes, her car, her house, but skimped on everything else. "Emma, my shoes are squeezy," Marcus said, confirming my suspicion. "I know, buddy. We'll get you new ones soon." But would we? If I somehow won this legal battle, could I afford to properly care for 2 children on my college budget? The reality of what I'd been fighting for started to sink in. It wasn't just about exposing Melissa anymore, it was about accepting responsibility for Sophie and Marcus's entire future. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, emergency study group at 3 p.m. "Professor Williams moved the final exam to Thursday because of the lab fire. Are you okay to make it?" The final exam. My pre-med requirements. The life I'd been building before all this exploded. I'd been so focused on destroying Melissa's career that I'd nearly forgotten about my own education. "Can't make it." "Family crisis," I texted back, then immediately realized I sounded exactly like Melissa making excuses. At 2:47 p.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Emma Chen? This is Margaret Hartwell, founder of Hartwell and Associates." My stomach dropped. The actual owner of Melissa's company was calling me personally. "Ms. Hartwell, Ms. Chen, I've been reviewing the documentation you provided regarding Melissa Rodriguez. I want you to know that we take employee integrity very seriously, especially when children's welfare is involved." "Thank you, However, I also want you to understand the broader implications of what's happening here. Melissa has been with our company for 4 years. She generates approximately $2.3 million in annual revenue for us. Terminating her employment isn't a decision we make lightly." The number hit me like ice water. $2.3 million. No wonder she was fighting so hard. That said, Ms. Hartwell continued, "We cannot ignore documented evidence of fraud and endangerment. Our investigation has confirmed that she falsified travel reports, misused personal time, and repeatedly lied about her availability for client emergencies." I held my breath. "Effective immediately, Melissa Rodriguez is suspended without pay pending a full ethics review. If our findings support your allegations, she will be terminated and potentially face criminal charges for fraud." After she hung up, I sat in my car outside Marcus's preschool, hands shaking. It was done. Melissa's career was over. But as I watched other parents picking up their children, laughing and chatting about normal things like weekend plans and birthday parties, I wondered what I'd really won. In 3 hours, Melissa would be home, probably with her incompetent lawyer, ready for the biggest fight of both our lives. My phone started ringing at 6:47 p.m., just as I was serving dinner to the kids. Melissa's name flashed on the screen, and my stomach clenched. "Emma, we need to talk." I'm pulling into the driveway now. Through the front window, I watched her white BMW park behind my beat-up Honda. She emerged wearing wrinkled clothes I'd never seen before, cheap jeans and a Target t-shirt instead of her usual designer armor. The change was jarring. "Kids, keep eating," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "I'll be right back." I met her on the front porch, closing the door behind me so Sophie and Marcus couldn't hear what was coming. "You look terrible," I said, and meant it. Her usually perfect makeup was gone, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. The corporate executive facade had completely cracked. "Gee, thanks. Turns out getting fired and potentially facing fraud charges really takes it out of you." Her voice was flat, exhausted. "My lawyer says you cost me everything." "Your lawyer sounds incompetent." Jennifer told me he cited California employment law for a Virginia case. Melissa's face flushed red. "He was all I could afford, okay? My credit cards are maxed out, my savings are gone, and now I have no income." "Happy now?" I thought I would be, but seeing her this broken felt hollow instead of satisfying. "Where have you been for the past 4 days, Melissa?" "Really?" She slumped against the porch railing. "Chicago. With Derek. It was supposed to be a long weekend, maybe 5 days max. When everything exploded Monday morning, I panicked and told him we had to stay until I figured out damage control. While your kids faced CPS investigations. While my entire life imploded." Her voice cracked. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything? The house payment is due Friday, and I have maybe $300 to my name. The BMW is getting repossessed next week. Sophie and Marcus are going to watch their mother become a complete failure." Through the window, I could see both kids at the kitchen table, Sophie helping Marcus cut his chicken nuggets. They looked content, secure. They had no idea their whole world was about to change again. "There's something else," Melissa said quietly. "Derek broke up with me yesterday. Turns out he's not interested in dating an unemployed single mother with legal problems." Shocking, right? The bitterness in her voice was painful to hear, but I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. "Not yet." "What's your plan now?" "Plan?" She laughed, a harsh sound. "My plan is to figure out how to keep my kids fed and housed while being blacklisted from every marketing firm in the state. My plan is to explain to Sophie why she can't do travel soccer anymore and tell Marcus why we're moving to some shitty apartment across town. Detective Walsh says you're requesting an emergency custody hearing tomorrow." My lawyer's idea. "He thinks if we can prove you manipulated me into this situation, we can get the CPS reports dismissed and maybe even sue you for damages." She looked directly at me. "Emma, I know what I did was wrong. But destroying me doesn't help my kids." From inside, Marcus called out, "Emma, I'm done eating. Can we do puzzles now?" Melissa's face crumpled when she heard her son asking for me instead of acknowledging her presence. "They don't even know I'm here," she whispered. "My own children have completely replaced me with you." For the first time since this all started, I saw genuine pain in her eyes instead of just anger or desperation. But it was too late for regret. Maybe you should come inside and talk to them, I said. Before tomorrow's hearing decides everything. The moment Melissa walked into the kitchen, the atmosphere changed completely. Sophie looked up from her homework with wide eyes, while Marcus dropped his puzzle piece and ran straight to me, wrapping his arms around my legs. Mommy, Sophie said, but her voice carried uncertainty rather than joy. You're back early. Hi, babies, Melissa said, her voice artificially bright. Did you miss me? Marcus buried his face against my jeans and didn't answer. Sophie glanced between us nervously. We had fun with Emma, Sophie said carefully. She helped me with my book report and took us to the park every day. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Melissa's smile looked painted on. But Mommy's home now, so Emma can go back to college. But Emma promised to help me practice for my spelling test tomorrow, Marcus mumbled into my leg. And she's making pancakes in the morning. I felt Melissa's eyes burning into me. Every word out of the kids' mouths was another knife twist, making it clear how completely I'd replaced her in their daily lives. Actually, Melissa said, sitting down at the kitchen table with forced casualness, we need to talk about some changes. Emma won't be babysitting anymore. Sophie's pencil froze over her homework. What? Why not? Because I'm going to be spending more time at home. We're going to do lots of fun activities together, just the three of us. The lie came so easily, but I knew the truth. Even if she somehow kept custody, she'd have to take any job she could find, probably multiple part-time positions at a fraction of her old salary. There would be no quality time, just desperate scrambling to pay bills. But Emma comes to my soccer games, Sophie said, her voice getting smaller. And she knows how to braid my hair the way I like it. I can learn to braid your hair, Sophie. You never have time to learn anything, Marcus said, finally lifting his head to look at his mother. You're always on your phone or going to work meetings. Melissa flinched like he'd slapped her. That's going to change, Marcus. Mommy's going to have lots more time now. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Walsh, emergency hearing moved to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Judge wants all parties present including the children. Be prepared for custody evaluation. 8 a.m. 12 hours to figure out how to protect Sophie and Marcus from whatever legal trap Melissa's lawyer had constructed. What's wrong? Melissa asked, noticing my expression. The hearing got moved up. Tomorrow morning. Sophie looked up from her homework again. What hearing? Are you and Mommy fighting about us? The directness of her question caught us both off guard. Kids always knew more than adults thought they did. It's complicated, sweetheart, I said gently. Are we in trouble? Marcus asked, his voice tiny. Is that why the lady with the badge came to talk to you yesterday? Melissa's head snapped toward me. What lady with a badge? Detective Walsh from Child Protection Services. She interviewed me as part of the investigation. You let CPS interrogate my children without my consent? I didn't let her do anything. She came here as part of the reports filed by both schools about your pattern of abandonment and educational neglect. Abandonment? Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. Mommy, did you abandon us? The kitchen went deadly quiet. Marcus climbed onto my lap, seeking comfort, while Sophie stared at her mother with eyes that looked far too old for a 6-year-old. No, baby, of course not, Melissa said desperately. Emma is confused about some things. Mommy would never abandon you. But you did leave us at school until Mrs. Patterson said we might have to go with strangers, Sophie said matter-of-factly. And you forgot to pick us up from Derek's apartment that time and we waited for 3 hours. I hadn't known about the Derek incident. Another piece of evidence for tomorrow's hearing. Sophie, that's enough, Melissa snapped, then immediately looked stricken by her own harsh tone. My phone rang, an unknown number again. Emma, this is Dr. Patricia Hendricks. I'm the court-appointed child psychologist who'll be evaluating the family situation tomorrow morning. I need to conduct preliminary interviews with both children tonight. Can you have them ready by 7 p.m.? Melissa was watching my face, trying to read the conversation. Of course, I said. Should I prepare them in any way? Just explain that a nice lady wants to ask them some questions about their daily routines and feelings. Nothing scary, but their answers will help the judge make important decisions. When I hung up, Melissa was already reaching for her purse. I'm calling my lawyer. This is happening too fast. Your incompetent lawyer who doesn't know Virginia law. He's all I have, Emma. She was crying now, mascara she'd put on for the flight home streaking down her cheeks. You destroyed everything else. Sophie and Marcus were watching their mother fall apart in real time, and I realized tomorrow's hearing might not be the end of this nightmare, it might just be the beginning. Dr. Hendricks arrived at exactly 7 p.m., a kind-faced woman in her 50s who immediately put the kids at ease. She spoke with Sophie first, then Marcus, asking gentle questions about their routines, who helped with homework, who they felt safe with. Through the kitchen doorway, I could hear Marcus's small voice saying, Emma always comes when she says she will. Sometimes Mommy forgets. Melissa sat at the dining room table with her lawyer, frantically reviewing documents. When Dr. Hendricks finished with the children, she pulled both Melissa and me aside. I'll be honest, she said quietly. The children show clear attachment patterns. Sophie demonstrates academic anxiety that resolves when discussing Emma's involvement. Marcus exhibits classic abandonment responses that he associates with his mother's absences. Melissa's face went white. What does that mean for tomorrow? It means the judge will have clear psychological evidence about stability and attachment when making custody decisions. That night, I barely slept. At 7:30 a.m., we all gathered at the courthouse, me, Melissa, her lawyer, Detective Walsh, Dr. Hendricks, and tragically, Sophie and Marcus in their nicest clothes, holding hands and looking terrified. Judge Patricia Morrison, ironically sharing the principal's last name, was a stern woman who cut straight through the legal posturing. Mr. Brennan, your client has documented patterns of educational neglect, falsified work records, and abandonment incidents spanning 18 months. What exactly are you arguing here? Melissa's lawyer shuffled his papers nervously. Your Honor, we believe Ms. Chen has systematically alienated the children from their mother through manipulation and... Stop. Judge Morrison held up her hand. Dr. Hendricks, what did your evaluation reveal? The children are thriving academically and emotionally under Ms. Chen's care. They exhibit security, consistent routines, and age-appropriate development. With their mother, they show anxiety, fear of abandonment, and regression behaviors. Judge Morrison turned to Detective Walsh. Your recommendation? Emergency temporary guardianship to Ms. Chen, with supervised visitation for Ms. Rodriguez pending completion of parenting classes and stable employment. Your Honor, Melissa's lawyer interrupted. My client has been gainfully employed for 4 years. Had been employed, Judge Morrison corrected, consulting her papers. According to Hartwell and Associates, Ms. Rodriguez was terminated yesterday for fraud and misrepresentation. She currently has no income, no child care plan, and a documented history of negligence. Melissa started crying, but Judge Morrison wasn't finished. Furthermore, Ms. Rodriguez, your own employment records show a pattern of deception that directly endangered your children's welfare. You lied about business travel while abandoning them with unpaid family members. You missed mandatory school conferences that could have resulted in CPS intervention. You left these children in institutional care while conducting personal business from home. The gavel came down with finality. Emergency temporary guardianship is granted to Emma Chen, effective immediately. Ms. Rodriguez, you will complete court-mandated parenting classes, maintain stable housing and employment, and demonstrate consistent responsibility before any custody modification will be considered. This case will be reviewed in 6 months. As we walked out of the courthouse, Sophie slipped her hand into mine. Emma, does this mean you're really our mom now? I looked back at Melissa, broken and defeated, crying on the courthouse steps while her useless lawyer packed his briefcase. It means I'm going to take care of you, I said. For as long as you need me to. Melissa had called me just a babysitter and destroyed my belongings. Now I had legal guardianship of her children, she'd lost her career, and she was facing months of supervised visits and parenting classes. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone face the consequences they've been avoiding. But watching Sophie and Marcus skip ahead to my car, backpacks bouncing, chattering about what we'd make for dinner tonight, that wasn't revenge. That was justice.